Dear students, prelims is over and now you must be looking for the reliable answers so that you can decide what should be your next step. We at Shubhra Ranjan IAS have always endeavored to provide the authentic answers to the questions. With me is our history faculty, Miss Radha Gupta. We will be discussing not just answers of the questions, we will also be doing some trend analysis so that the students who are going to appear next year, they understand the trend and we can open up some of the aspects related to the civil services examination as far as prelims is concerned, what is going on in the mind of the UPSC, like what is the reason behind asking such type of questions. So welcome, Radha. And history has always been, I have found that students have some fear as far as history is concerned. And in the last few years, I have seen that UPSC is giving greater focus on history. And earlier, the thinking was that if you prepare modern India and you can ignore medieval India, it's fine. But do you agree with this?
So, first of all, ma'am, I would like to talk about the fear of history, which students often have. If we look at history, generally what is there in the mind that you have to mug up the dates, you have to mug up the achievements of important kings. And that becomes the most dreadful thing when it comes to history, because it is not often possible to remember a lot of factual details. But if we look at the UPSC question paper, if we analyze the trend, it is not only about facts. You need to build up on the concepts as well, which we'll talk about eventually. So first, looking at the question paper this year, so generally there were 16 to 18 questions which were being asked in prelims examination. And larger focus, as you said, was on modern Indian history. But if we look at
it
used to be like that. But if we look at the trend now, so I'll do the comparisons as well. Let's talk about this year question paper first. So there are around 14 questions.
Okay.
4 of them are from ancient India. 4 of them are from art and culture. 3 of them are from medieval, and only 3 questions have been asked from.
So it's a complete change.
It is
a complete change. And I think in the previous 2-3 years, they were giving this indication. They were relatively increasing the focus.
Yes.
And the students should have already understood this indication that even medieval and ancient is going to be very, very critical in determining the total performance of yours.
Yes. So if we look at last year trend only, so in 2022, there were only 4 questions that were asked from modern India. And this year the question is reduced, the number of questions is reduced even more. There are only 3 questions. If we look at ancient, so it has been 2, 3, 4, 2, and this year 4 questions have been asked. If we look at, let's say, medieval India, so again, the trend is on increasing level. So there were 4 questions, 2 questions, again 4, 6 this year, 3
And
questions.
on the basis of the nature of the questions asked, can you suggest like what should have been the primary sources of the students?
So if we talk about the sources, again, there are 2 types of questions which have been asked. So first thing is to build a base upon NCRTs, because if one is not able to read the NCRTs properly, they will not be able to answer most of the questions. So there are 2
NCRT remains the base.
It remains very important because there are questions which have been directly asked from NCRTs. And there is often a trend that students ignore those areas. So one needs to focus upon that. On the other hand, there are certain questions which requires much more depth knowledge of the subject. So these questions are related to the current events. For example, Sangam Age was in the news.
Current events in history.
So you need to learn to relate you need to learn the art of relating. So Sangam Age was in the news. There was Kashi Tamil Sangamam which took place. So there is one question on Sangam Age. but it is not a very simple question. It is a very tough question. They have given a term and they are asking the meaning of that.
Okay.
So these
So
kind
which
of,
type of questions how students can prepare?
so when you have to prepare, first you need to read the NCRTs properly. Now, if we look at the trend, so if I talk about modern India, let's say, so there are certain areas from which UPSC does ask the question. So they ask from important acts, important charter act or regulating act, or the reforms that are taking place in British times. So this year, if you look at the question, there is one direct question on one of the charter acts.
Yes.
That is one area. The second area, which is very important, is freedom fighters or important events, Swadeshi movement. There is a direct question, but it is also related to the current events. So, National Handloom Day is being celebrated now, so they have related it to that.
So do you think
question.
that if students have information of facts alone, they can answer the questions?
No, that knowledge of facts is very important, but at the same time, you need to understand the trend. You need to build up important concepts on the basis of that. There are obviously some questions which you can answer if you know the facts, but there are increasing number of questions where you need to apply the logic. And if we look at this year question paper also, which was there in last year paper, so you cannot apply the elimination technique. That is completely done away with, which used to be talked about a lot. So if you don't know the concepts, you won't be able to answer it.
So what Radha, I want that while you discuss, you can be little bit more elaborate so that the students who are going to prepare for the next year, so they get some insights beforehand, because there is a general impression that prelims is all about facts and information. Right? So please discuss it a little bit elaborately. In Shubhra Ranjan IAS, I always make an effort that the teacher who teaches a particular subject should have the necessary minimum qualification in the subject that person is taking. So Radha, she comes from the Delhi University. She has done her master's from Ramjas College, which is well known for history, and that's why I think that we can trust on her not only knowledge but also her wisdom of history as far as the concepts is concerned. So I thought it's worth to mention the background of the teacher so that you can be more comfortable in the answers and explanations. And as well as, though we are giving you discussion, but I have requested all the teachers to be present live tomorrow. Will you be available tomorrow? Yes. Somewhere around 5 o'clock?
Sure.
Okay, where you can go through the discussions. If still you have any doubts, so Radha will be there to handle your doubts so that we can be very, very sure about what is to be done in the next step. Okay, and yes, Radha, as the prelims is over, and I believe that even in mains, the role of culture is going to be increased, because today itself we have seen inauguration of parliament, and the prime minister is giving significance of some Sangol he was talking about. So as India is rising and emerging, the identity of India is very much because of its culture. So it's very natural, because see, the nature of the questions I feel changes according to the requirement of the administration. Fine. So we should also be knowing that why they are putting so much focus on culture, because we are emphasizing so much on our soft power in international sphere. And I think that it's like, I don't know why students, but I always found learning culture very inspiring, because you feel good that you are a part of that civilization. This is my natural feeling. And so what I say that as far as some subjects are concerned, and if you want to improve your performance, you should have a very strong reason. Fine. So just don't think ki culture I have to study for just clearing or prelims, etc. But it is a part of your identity. It will give you a lot of confidence as a person that you belong to such a rich culture and heritage. So now I will request Radha, would you like to say something, or should we go for discussing the
We can do the
answers?
discussions because there are a lot of points which you have already talked about.
Yeah, one thing, now since the prelims is over, I will
Yes.
tell students not to think too much on the paper, because what is done cannot be undone. So they should start preparing for mains, whatever is the performance. Fine. So do you have something special as far as the art, culture, and the history part of GS paper 1 is concerned?
So, ma'am, as you rightly pointed out, that the focus is very much upon art and culture, and we can understand the reason as well, because when we are talking about our present, we need to be aware of our past as well. When British are also coming, they are also focusing upon India's ancient past.
Yes,
And
of course.
so that thing is there. We cannot be proud of our present unless we know our past properly. So this thing is happening again, that there is an increasing focus, and there are certain topics which needs to be done in a very good manner, in a very comprehensive manner. So that is something that one needs to be aware of. What are the important topics, and even in those topics, what are the aspects that we need to focus upon, so that we are able to develop our writing skills accordingly. We are able to focus upon the keywords, we are able to understand the demand of the question, we are able to address every aspect of the question that is asked.
And there is so much, and the challenge in the mains answer is to give very substantive answers in a limited word, which will come with lot of practice and lot of brainstorming. So, what is preparation on your part for our students who are going to do mains? Because we will be starting the test series come crash course for general studies also. So, how you have geared up to help our students?
So, ma'am, to provide, so in this examination, the proper mentorship is very important, because students are not able to find the important topics, and they are not able to understand the demand, how one should study it. So we have prepared a crash course, as you have always been doing in PSIR, and the results are visible to everybody today. So in the same manner, we have tried to prepare a crash course along with the test series, where we are going to give details on important topics and every important aspect related to that
I
topic.
believe that in the test series, you will be honing their skills, so that expected, unexpected, all type of questions they do, which is a matter of satisfaction for them. So now Radha ma'am will discuss the questions, and she will also analyze. So over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. So now we are going to discuss this year's prelims question paper, GS1. And I'll be doing the history and art and culture sections with you. So if you look at this year's question paper, it was, some of the areas were moderate and some of the areas were relatively difficult in nature. So if we divide it into 4 parts, there is art and culture, ancient, medieval, and then modern. So questions from art and culture was relatively moderate in nature. If you look at ancient and medieval, they were difficult. If you knew the answers, you could have solved it. Otherwise, one would not be able to solve those questions. So they were difficult ones. Again, coming to modern India, the questions were relatively simpler. If you have read the basic books, you will be able to solve them. So that was the nature of the questions. If you look at the question paper, there are around 14 questions which have been asked. So there are 14 questions, and in these 14 questions, 4 are from art and culture, 4 are from ancient India. These two areas overlap a lot of times. So you can say around 8 questions were asked from ancient and art and culture. 3 questions were from medieval India and 3 questions were from modern India. Okay. So when we look at the nature of questions, if I talk about art and culture, ancient and medieval, what we have looked at in the last few years, that the questions are being asked on regional dynasties. On regional dynasties also, they have often asked questions on Sangam dynasty. Even in last year question paper, there was a question on Sangam dynasty. They have asked about Vijayanagar Empire, they have asked about Chola Empire, they have asked about stup and temple structures, they have asked about important texts. So text is becoming important every year. So again, there was one question from texts as well in this year question paper. They are asking about important sites, they are asking about important terms, they are asking about important kings and their achievements. That is one thing that is being asked in ancient art and culture and in medieval India. So when you look at these questions, when you look at this year's question paper, you will realize that most of the questions are revolving around this theme only. Again, Buddhism and Jainism becomes very important. So in stup, in text, in sites, that area is already covered. Okay. So these are some of the important topics, and in this year question paper also questions were asked from these very topics only. But what has changed? The change is that they are asking questions which require much more in-depth knowledge. That is one thing that is increasing. So you cannot solve these questions only by reading NCERTs. Though you do need a deeper knowledge of NCERT, but you also need to keep an inquisitive mind. You need to look at important current events. If somebody is referring to a particular ancient tradition, if there is an important excavation that is going on and that has been in the news, you need to have a knowledge of all those things, and you need to be able to relate it to the static topics. Then only you will be able to answer most of the questions. Okay, so this is one skill that one needs to develop now, even while studying history. When we talk about modern India, so there are again certain traditional topics. For example, Charter Act, important freedom fighters, important events related to the struggle for Indian independence, details about companies, for example, Dutch East India Company, Portuguese East India Company, British East India Company, reform movement. These are relatively the areas from where questions are being asked. Constitution is another area from where questions are often asked. If you look at this year's question paper also, all the three questions fall in this realm. Okay. So you need to be able to identify the important topics. That is one thing. If you are able to do that, you will be in a better position to prepare for the examination. After that, you need to be able to understand what are important current events and how they are related to the static portion of history. The third thing that I talked about is that you need to be able to understand the importance of excavations or new sources that are coming to light every day. Writing history is not a static process. So there is always excavations, or there is always coming of new inscriptions, new coins, new texts are being read, and history is also being revised. Okay, so this is also one thing that you need to focus upon now. Okay, so these are broadly the things, the trend that has been there. Now I would discuss each question with you which was asked in this year's examination. Okay, so the first question is, in which of the following regions was Dhanya Katak, which flourished as a prominent Buddhist center under the Mahasanghikas, located? So if you look at this question, in which one of the following regions was Dhanya Katak, which flourished as a prominent Buddhist center under the Mahasanghikas, located? So this question is related to the site part, which we have discussed, that they are asking you about important sites. They are asking about important Buddhist sites, to be precise. Okay, so Dhanya Katak is another name for Amravati. So this is one question. If everybody has studied about Amravati, because it was one of the capitals of Satavahans, Amravati Stup is also a very prominent stup when it comes to the history of Buddhism. So this is one thing that we know while preparing for UPSC. Now, if they are giving the name Dhanya Katak, here this question becomes difficult. If you are not aware of this name, that this is also used for Amravati, you will not be able to answer this question. There is no elimination technique that you can apply here. So if you know this term that Dhanya Katak is related to Amravati, you will be able to answer that it is present in Andhra area. What was another name that was used for Dhanya Katak or Amravati? That was Andhra Nagari. So our answer is going to be A. Okay. Now, this second question, which is the relatively easier question, with reference to ancient India, consider the following statement. The concept of stoop is Buddhist in origin. Stoop was generally a repository of relics. Stoop was a votive and commemorative structure in Buddhist tradition. How many of the statements given above are correct? Only one, only two, all three, none. So this kind of option, this kind of trend in options, that was very much there in last year's question paper as well. And you must have realized that now you cannot apply elimination technique here. You need to be sure of these options. Then only you will be able to answer the question correctly. Now, looking at the nature of this question, this is directly related to Buddhist architecture, and it is a pretty simple question if you have read your basic NCERT. So now the concept of stoop is Buddhist in origin. So we know that the concept of stoop predates Buddhism. It is not Buddhist in origin. So the first option, the first statement is wrong. The second statement is stoop was generally a repository of relics. So if you study the Buddhist architecture, the structure of Anda, that is actually having relics either of Buddha or of important Buddhist monks. Okay, so that is going to be a repository of relics. So this is a right statement. Stoop was a votive and commemorative structure in Buddhist tradition. So this is again a right statement. Votive, something which is related to veneration. Okay, so when we are talking about votive structure, it was a votive structure. It was also a commemorative structure because it is containing the relics either of Buddha or of important monks. So this is also going to be commemorative in nature. Okay, something which is being made to remember somebody or some important event or some important thing. Okay, so this statement is also going to be right. So second and third statements are right. First statement is wrong. So our answer is going to be B, only 2. This was one of the questions which you could have solved if you had studied your NCERT properly. Now, the third question which is there with reference to ancient South India, Korakai, Pompuhar and Muchiri were well known as. So, this is again one question. If you know these terms, if you know these sites, then only you will be able to answer this question. Otherwise, you won't be able to answer this question. Okay, so let's look at these sites. If you know Muchiri, which is also known as Muziri, it is in on Malabar coast in present day Kerala region. This is often in news due to the excavations that are happening there. So if you know about Muziri, that it was an important ancient port, you will be able to answer it even if you don't know about Korakai or Pompuhar. Okay, so Mujiri has been in the news. This is one of the important port cities in Kerala region. Okay, so Mujiri in Kerala region. When we are talking about Korakai, that is in present day Tamil Nadu region. Pompuhar, when you were studying about Sangam era, there is this mention of the city of Puhar. This is the same city, Pompuhar, and Puhar city was a very important flourishing trade center, which was also a port city during Sangam period. And many of the Sangam texts talk about the city of Puhar. Again, I talked about the fact that Sangam period was in the news. In last year also there was a question on Sangam period. So here Pompuhar again becomes very important, and this is one of the important port cities from ancient South India. So our answer is going to be B, which is ports. Okay. Now the fourth question was a difficult one. So if you look at this question, what is the question? Which of the following explains the practice of Vattakirutal as mentioned in Sangam poems? So this question is about Sangam age. This is something that one could have predicted. But if you look at the term that they are asking what is the practice of Vattakirutal? So if you don't know this, that's okay, because it is a very difficult question, and in UPSC there are certain questions which are meant to be left. This is one of those questions. Okay, so let's look at the options. What are the options that have been given? Kings employing women bodyguards, learned persons assembling in royal courts to discuss religious and philosophical matters, young girls keeping watch over agricultural fields and driving away birds and animals, a king defeated in the battle committing ritual suicide by starving himself to death. So the answer is going to be D. Vattakirutal is a practice where a king who has been defeated in the battle is going to commit a ritual suicide by starving himself to death. And sometimes the king used to do it alone. Sometimes you will see that this practice is being done in groups. So the loyal officers or royal people who are there with the king, they also used to practice Vattakirutal. Okay, so the right answer is D. Now, if you have not been able to attempt this question, you do not need to worry about it. There are other questions which we need to look at. Now, this is a question about regional dynasties. What is the question? Consider the following dynasties: Hoysala, Kakatiya, Gehadwal, Yadav. Okay, so if you look at again the current happenings, there has been an instant talk about paying adequate attention to regional dynasties. So one question on regional dynasties is there, and this is a trend which is very much visible in the past years question papers as well. So but here, do you need to know everything about these regional dynasties? If you look at the question that has been asked, here you need to apply logic. What they have asked: how many of the above dynasties established their kingdoms in early 8th century AD? They are saying early 8th century AD. If you look at the name of these dynasties, Hoysala, Kakatiya, Gehadwal, Yadav, all of these dynasties have been established and have been ruled roughly from the area of 11th to 14th century CE or AD. How can you answer this question? If you have read your NCRTs properly, Gehadwalas come when they talk about Rajputs. Their origin is not in early 8th century AD. We study them in our NCRT with respect to Ghaznavid and Ghorid invasions. Kakatiya, Hoysala, Yadav, when you must be reading Alauddin Khilji, Delhi Sultanate period, all these dynasties have been there when they are talking about the invasion that is happening or the wars that is happening with South Indian dynasties. So all these dynasties have been mentioned there. So if you have studied it with respect to Delhi Sultanate, they are not going to be there in 8th century AD. This is one of the logics that you can apply. Okay. Because most of the dynasties rule for 200-300 years. Okay, so that is one thing that you can answer, and the answer is going to be none. Here, even if you don't have a lot of knowledge about these dynasties, but you have read your basic books, you will be able to answer this particular question. Okay. Now, come to the next question, which is there. With reference to ancient Indian history, consider the following pairs. What are the pairs? This is a question on literature. Again, a question on literature has become the feature of UPSC prelims examination. Okay, and these texts are often from ancient or medieval India. So let's look at the pairs. Devi Chandragupta, Bilhan, Milind Panha, Nagarjuna, Hamir Mahakavya, Naya Chandra Suri, Niti Vakya Mitra, that is Somadeva Suri. Okay, these are the 4 pairs that have been given. Now you have to tell how many of the above pairs are correctly matched. Here also there are certain texts which are well known. There are 2 texts, at least 2 texts, the second and fourth one, which are not very well known. So let's discuss this question. This is moderately difficult, you can say. Devi Chandraguptam is a text that was composed by Vishakadatta, not by Bilhan. So this is one text which is talking about a king from Gupta dynasty, Ramagupta. So this pair is not correctly matched because this is one text which was composed by Vishakadatta in Sanskrit language, a very important text from ancient India. Okay, this pair is not correctly matched. Now Milind Panho by Nagarjuna. So Milind Panho by Nagarjuna is a very important text, and one is expected to know this when one is reading the history of Buddhist literature. Okay, so Milind Panho is a text about a talk, a conversation that takes place between the king Menander or Milind. Both are the names of the same person, and Nagarjuna or Nagasen. Okay, so this is one of the very important texts from ancient India about Buddhist tradition, how Nagasen is convincing the king Menander or Milind to convert to Buddhism. This text was written originally in Pali language. Okay, so this is correctly matched. Now the third option, this option is Hamir Mahakavya by Naya Chandra Suri. So this was a Jain person, Jain scholar, and he has written this particular text. So it is correctly matched. What is Hamir Mahakavya all about? So Hamir Mahakavya is a biography of the king Hamir. You must have studied about the battle that took place between Alauddin Khilji and Hamir Dev. So it is about those events. Okay, so this is again a very important text. It is not a contemporary text to Hamir Dev. It is a later text which was composed during 15th century CE. Okay, so this is also correctly matched. Now, the other pair that is there, Niti Vakya Mrita. Okay, so the translation of this is going to be nectar of political treatise. Okay, so what is the duties of a king? That is something that is mentioned in Niti Kavya Amrita, and it was composed by Somadeva Suri, again in Sanskrit language. 3 of the texts are composed in Sanskrit language. This one is in Pali language. Okay, so this is again a correctly matched pair. This was a moderately difficult question, and the answer is going to be C, only 3, because Devi Chandraguptam is not composed by Bilhan, it is composed by Vishakha Datta. Now, let's look at the next question. Souls are not only the property of animal and plant life, but also of rocks, running water, and many other natural objects not looked on as living by other religious sects. The above statement reflects one of the core beliefs of which one of the following religious sects of ancient India? This is a pretty simple question. When you are studying the philosophy of Buddhism and Jainism, the very basic philosophy of Buddhism and Jainism, you will see that Jainism talks about souls belonging in both animate as well as inanimate objects. So Jainism says that souls are the property even of rocks, of water, of air, and that is why we should not even practice agriculture, because you are going to harm the earth, you are going to harm the worms. So Jainism is one of the religions that is propagating the idea that souls belong to both animates as well as inanimate object. So this was a pretty simple question which could have been answered if you have read your basic books. So the answer is going to be B, Jainism. Okay. Now, coming to the next question, which among the following rulers of Vijayanagar Empire constructed a large dam across Tungabhadra river and a canal cum aqueduct several kilometers long from the river to the capital city? This is a question from Vijayanagar dynasty, and the options that are given are Devaraya I, Mallikarjuna, Veera Vijaya and Virupaksha. Now, if you look at this question and if you have read your old NCRT, you will be able to answer this question that the answer is Devaraya I. This is a statement which have been directly taken from your NCRT books. So, in that chapter, the chapter talks about the important military accomplishments of Devaraya I, and then it talks about his irrigation efforts and how he is able to provide water supplies to the city of Vijayanagar or Hampi. So from there the statement has been taken, and if you have read your NCRT, you will be able to answer this question that the answer is A. Devaraya I is the person who is conducting many successful military campaigns as well as focusing a lot upon the irrigation facilities provided by the state. Okay, so this was a relatively simpler question. If you have read your basic books properly, the answer is A. Devaraya I. Now, the next question. Who among the following rulers of medieval Gujarat surrendered Diu to Portuguese? Ahmad Shah, Mahmud Baghra, Bahadur Shah and Muhammad Shah. So again, this is a direct question from Spectrum. This is again according to the trend. They have been asking you about Dutch East India Company or French East India Company or British East India Company or Portuguese East India Company. So here, if you look at this question, this is again directly taken from your Spectrum, where they are talking about Portuguese East India Company in India. So there is this detail about Nuno di Chunha in your Spectrum, where they are saying that Nuno di Chunha came to India as the governor of Portuguese occupations here in 1529, and how he is also trying to win some of the territories from the ruler of Gujarat. What he is doing, he is shifting the base from Cochin to Goa. At the same time, what is happening, that the Sultan of Gujarat, what is happening there, that he is in direct conflict with Mughals, and when Portuguese are also going to attack, this person is choosing to make peace with Portuguese, and he granted some of the areas of Basain and nearby areas to Portuguese, and he is also signing a treaty on 25th of October 1535 and surrendering Diu to Portuguese, a decision which this person Bahadur Shah is going to regret very soon when Mughal threat is going to recede. So again, if you have read that book and you are able to understand the importance of Portuguese and how they were playing a role when it came to conflicts between Indian rulers, you will be able to answer this question. The right answer is going to be C, Bahadur Shah. Okay. Now, the next question, which is from modern India. By which one of the following acts was the Governor General of Bengal designated as the Governor General of India? Again, this is one thing that you should have studied. They often ask about important charter acts or important reforms that were being done by British rule. Okay, so here they are asking which one of the following acts was by which one of the following acts was the Governor General of Bengal designated as the Governor General of India? The Regulating Act, the Pitt's India Act, the Charter Act of 1793, the Charter Act of 1833. This is a pretty simple question. The Charter Act of 1833 is going to make the Governor General of Bengal into Governor General of India. And the first Governor General of India was William Bentinck, which is also related with the Sati reform which was done, the Sati Regulating Act which was passed in Bengal. Okay, so the answer is going to be D. It is again a very direct question from your NCERTs and your spectrum book. So if you have read your basic books, you will be able to answer this question. The next question which is there, which is a tough question, I would say. What are they asking? They are asking with reference to the Indian history. Alexander Ree, A.H. Longhurst, Robert Sewell, James Burgess and Walter Elliot were associated with. How many of these are associated with archaeological excavations, establishment of press in colonial India, establishment of churches in princely states, construction of railways in colonial India? So this is one of the questions which cannot be answered very easily. It was a very difficult question, I would say. What is the answer? The answer is archaeological excavation. All these people were related with archaeological excavations which were taking place. So when you were studying British East India Company and their endeavors in India, you must have studied about the antiquarians, how there were certain people who were trying to understand the past of India, and there were a lot of excavations which were going on. There was translation of Sanskrit, Pali, Prakrit as well as Persian texts into English language to understand the past of India, and these are some of the people who are related with some important archaeological excavations. So if you look at Alexander Ree, he is associated with the excavations in Pallavaram. If you look at Longhurst, he is somebody who is associated with excavations in Nagarjun Konda, one of the very important stoops related to Buddhism. So it is a very important site for Buddhism. Robert Sewell, again associated with excavations at Amravati, again a very important Buddhist site. James Burgess, he is founder of Indian Antiquary. He is also associated with excavations in Elephanta and Ajanta area, again a very important site for Buddhism. Okay, Walter Elliot is associated with studying inscriptions as well as coins. So if you look at most of these names, first of all, it is well established that they are related with archaeological excavations. Second thing that you need to understand here, that more or less these people are associated with excavations at important Buddhist sites. Okay, so this question is indirectly related to history of Buddhism in India, but they have gone in a lot of depth while asking the question. If you have not been able to attempt this question, again you don't need to worry about it because it was one of the difficult questions in this paper. The answer is going to be A. Okay, the next question that is there is, consider the following pairs. Site well known for Besnagar, so Shaivite cave shrine. Ignore this. Shaivite cave shrine. Bhaja Buddhist cave shrine. Sitnavasal Jain cave shrine. They are asking how many of the above pairs are correctly matched. Here again you cannot apply elimination technique to large extent. Okay, so what are they asking? They are asking, see, these two sites you must be aware of if you have studied your NCERTs properly. Indian culture, the NCERT that is there, 11th class fine arts NCERT, you will be able to know these two sites, that Bhaja is a very important Buddhist cave shrine that is there in Maharashtra state of India. Sitnavasal, a very important Jain cave shrine from Tamil Nadu region. These two are pretty simple answers if you have read your NCERT properly. What is tough? Besnagar, whether it was a Shaivite cave shrine or not. So Besnagar is near present day Sanchi, that is in Madhya Pradesh. Okay, when excavations were happening there, Cunningham is the person who is associated with the excavations there, and he has written extensively on the site of Besnagar, which was also known as Bhilsa, okay, or Vidisha. So there we find Buddhist railings, primarily that is associated with Buddhism. If you look at pillar, there is one of the pillars that is found there, and the capital is Garuda capital. If you look at that as well, you will not be able to say that this was a Shaivite cave shrine. This is primarily related to Buddhism. Okay, so Besnagar is going to be not correctly matched. It is incorrectly matched. These two pairs are correctly matched. So your answer is going to be only two pairs. Okay. So this is your right answer. Now, coming to the next question, which is again from modern India. What is the question? Consider the following statements. Statement 1. 7th August is declared as National Handloom Day. Statement 2. It was in 1905 that the Swadeshi movement was launched on the same day. What are they asking? How many of the above pairs are correctly matched? Here what you have to look at, you have to look at the statement. Both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and statement 2 is the correct explanation of statement 1. Both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and statement 2 is not the correct explanation of statement 1. Statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. Statement 1 is incorrect, but statement 2 is correct. Here, what is the requirement of this question? You need to know about both the statements, whether they are right or not. And second, how they are related with each other. That is also something that we will have to know. So now let's look at the statement 1. 7th August is declared as the National Handloom Day. So it was declared National Handloom Day in 2015. So that is a correct statement. It was in 1905 that Swadeshi movement was launched on the same day. This is also a correct statement. In 1905, on 7th of August, Swadeshi movement was launched from Calcutta Town Hall. Both the statements are correct. These two options cannot be true. What we need to establish? We need to establish whether statement 2 is the correct explanation for statement 1 or not. So, Swadeshi movement was about boycotting British goods. Okay, and there was the focus on Swadeshi, the Indian handloom industry. When 7th of August was declared the National Handloom Day, it was declared the National Handloom Day to again promote the handloom weaving industry of India. Okay, so there was the direct relation between the two, and it was launched on 7th of August because Swadeshi movement was also launched on 7th of August. So both the statements are true, and statement 2 is the correct explanation for statement 1. Okay, so A is going to be our right answer. Here, what you do need to know, you need to know about the current events that are happening and how they are related with our past. If you have this basic knowledge, you will be able to answer this question pretty finely, because statement 2 is very simple. If you have read about Swadeshi movement, you must have read about Swadeshi movement if you are preparing for UPSC. That is a direct statement from there, and how it is related to National Handloom Day. Okay, so you need the information which is there in current events, you need the historical information as well, and you need to be able to relate the both. Okay, that is the key here. So A is our correct option. This was a simpler question. Okay, the next question is again in this form only, statement form. Consider the following statements with respect of the Constitution Day. Statement 1. The Constitution Day is celebrated on 26th of November every year to promote constitutional values among citizens. Statement 2. On 26th of November 1949, the Constituent Assembly of India set up drafting committee under the chairmanship of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar to prepare a draft constitution of India. The same options are there. Both statements are you need to know whether both statements are correct or not. The second thing you need to know whether the statement 2 is the correct explanation of statement 1 or not. Here, if you look at this question and if you are reading it in hurry, you will think that statement 2 is correct. Why you will think that? Because there is this date, 26th of November 1949. There is the name B.R. Ambedkar, drafting committee, chairmanship. The question is about Constitution Day. Here you need to pause a little bit and you need to read the question again. The question is, the Constitution Day is celebrated on 26th of November every year to promote constitutional values amongst the citizens. This is the right statement. On 26th of November, we do celebrate Constitution Day every year to promote the constitutional values among citizens. Let's look at the statement 2. On 26th of November, the Constituent Assembly of India was set up. So, is this date correct? If we talk about the setting up of Constituent Assembly, when we talk about drafting committee, it was set up on 29th of August 1947. So, this statement is incorrect. What happened on 26th of November 1949? Why this date is important? Because Constituent Assembly adopted the Constitution of India. When did it come to effect? 26th of January 1950. Okay, when we celebrate Republic Day now. So, this statement is incorrect, and when the statement is incorrect, statement A and B, they don't hold any value for us. The statement C is going to be correct because statement 1 is correct and statement 2 is incorrect. So that is going to be our final answer. This was also a simple question if you know about the important details in the drafting of the Constitution. Okay, so these were some of the questions. These were the questions that were asked in today's prelims examination. I hope this explanation helped you. And here again, as in the beginning, I told you that you need to read your NCERTs properly, but along with that, you need to be aware of the current events that are happening. You need to be able to relate the two. You need to become more inquisitive in terms of asking questions and understanding the conceptual details, because that is something that UPSC is requiring now. Another thing that we have talked about is that there is an increasing focus on art and culture, ancient and medieval Indian arena of Indian history, which was often ignored by the aspirants earlier. So you need to understand this particular trend and you need to read these areas properly while preparing for this examination. Watch this video, and if there are any doubts, we will be live tomorrow. You can ask any questions, any queries which are related with the examination, whether with this paper or with the preparation of the upcoming mains examination. Thank you.